You're not behind. You're thinking too short term. That feeling, it's not failure. When you scroll, you don't see someone's beginning, you see their middle. You don't see their bad drafts, their early attempts, the months when nothing worked. You're seeing a polished face and comparing it to your learning phase. You're comparing your chapter 2 to someone's chapter 22. And your brain doesn't register missing context. So the gap seems bigger than it actually is. You're not behind. Your brain is lying to you. You're measuring your life in the wrong unit. Growth doesn't always feel like improvement. Sometimes it just feels like maintenance. But long-term growth doesn't give you constant feedback. There's no applause for consistency. Invisibility is where real growth happens. Your brain is wired to chase visible progress. Your brain is wired for quick feedback, likes, results, visible growth. When something gives you proof that you're improving, your brain releases dopamine. But long-term growth doesn't work like that. There's no applause for consistency. There's no notification for showing up again. No visible spike for getting 1% better. When progress feels invisible, your brain reads that as failure. So when progress is quiet, your brain interprets there's a concept in a book called The Dip by Seth Godin. He explains that every meaningful pursuit has a low valley, a phase where improvement slows down. There's a moment in almost every meaningful pursuit where progress slows, motivation drops, results flatten, doubts get louder. The dip is the phase where progress slows, where motivation drops, where quitting feels rational. Most people assume that's the sign to quit. In the dip, Seth Godin explains that this valley isn't a sign to quit. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they misinterpret the dip as the end. But the dip isn't failure, it's the price of depth. But what if that's actually the sign that it's working? When you feel behind, you're often just at the dip. In the invisible middle, effort increases and results decreases. And this is the dangerous part. This is where people decide they're not talented or not disciplined or not meant for it. They're in the dip. But the dip is a filter. It filters out people who only wanted fast results, who were only in it for fast results. It filters out people who expected visible proof. And this is an extract from Letters to a Young Poet. I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and to try to love the questions themselves, as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, Live your way into the answer. He wrote that to a young artist in the middle of doubt, not at the beginning, not at the breakthrough, in the uncertainty. Rilke wasn't telling young artists to rush clarity, he was telling them to grow into it. And growing into something feels exactly like the dip. Because in the dip, nothing is resolved. You don't feel talented. You don't feel certain. You don't feel ahead. You feel unfinished. And unfinished feels like failure if you don't understand what phase you're in. Some answers can't be forced, they can only be matured into. And maturation is invisible. The dip is not the absence of progress, it's the season where progress is becoming internal. Don't demand answers you haven't grown strong enough to carry. Live the questions now. Because the dip isn't where you're disqualified, it's where you're being shaped. You only see the visible result. You don't see the repetitions, the boredom, the quiet consistency. The visible part of growth is tiny. The part that actually changes you is hidden. You don't see the early mornings, the drafts that don't work, the day when nothing improves. No one applauds this phase. No one congratulates the invisible middle. But the invisible middle is where identity is built. And identity takes time. Because repetition doesn't just improve skill, it reshapes self perception. You don't become confident when results appear. You become confident when you survive your own doubt. The dip lives down here, where effort increases, where results decrease, where growth feels invisible. And we live in a world that only celebrates the top, the launch, the breakthrough, the visible proof. But the part that actually changes you is hidden. And hidden does not mean absent. Instead of expecting transformation in 90 days, give yourself a longer horizon. The beginning isn't about mastery, it's about orientation. You're learning the terrain. Then comes the quiet stretch repetition, mistakes, adjustment. This is where most people get uncomfortable. And if you stay, compounding begins. Not because something dramatic happened, but because you didn't leave. Most people quit in the middle, not because they're incapable, but because they expected visibility instead of growth. They expected applause, proof, momentum. But growth isn't loud in the beginning, it's structural. The problem isn't lack of talent, it's a miscalibrated timeline. If you judge a long process from the middle, you will always think you're behind. You're not behind, you're just early in something that takes time. It was never anxiety, it was misalignment. You're looking with a short term lens on a long term process. You're not behind, you're inside the dip. And one day, what felt invisible, what felt impossible, will look inevitable.